I am 70 years old. My knees hurt when I walk, and I breathe harder than before. But tonight, as I wandered the wide corridors of this old oceanfront hotel, I felt something inside me that I hadn't felt in years. The family was upstairs, laughing, unpacking, arguing over who would get which bed. I needed a moment to myself. So I slipped out, letting the muffled carpet absorb the sound of my footsteps. The hallway smelled faintly of polished wood and ocean salt. And then I saw it. The sofa, brand new, gleaming in the golden glow of the chandelier. Its leather was a rich, dark brown, with that special sheen that only comes when the upholstery is untouched, unstained by years of sitting. I stopped. My hand reached out almost instinctively, and as my fingers touched the cool surface, the smell of fresh leather wafted up to meet me. It wasn't just a piece of furniture. It was a trigger. A key to a door I'd thought had been locked for a long time. Suddenly, I was no longer a 70-year-old man in a hotel hallway. I was a boy again, lean-armed, watchful-eyed, standing in my father's living room, staring at the old, battered sofa that had been in our family since before I was born, the one with the springs that creaked like an old floorboard every time he sat down with a newspaper. That sofa in the hotel reminded me of my life, not in one brief memory, but in fragments. The sawdust in my nose, the shine of the varnish, the way buyers ran their hands across the table in the showroom as if it held some hidden secret. I didn't choose to become a furniture salesman. Life chose it for me. And as I stood there, touching that new skin, the years began to unroll in my mind like a film reel. I leaned back on the armrest, closed my eyes, and let the memories take me back. Back to small-town America. Back to the cracked sidewalks, the baseball on the street, the smell of freshly cut grass, and the hope of a boy who had not yet known how hard and beautiful life could be. I grew up in a small American town in the 1950s, back when life seemed slower, though we didn't know it then. We thought it was all moving so fast. The town had one main street, barber shop, hardware store, drugstore with a soda fountain, and a little furniture shop at the corner. I never paid much attention to it as a kid, except for the smell. Even walking past, I remember it. Wood polish, varnish, something warm and earthy that clung to the air like memory itself. Our house was modest. My father worked at the mill. My mother kept the home together. We didn't have much, but we had a couch that sagged in the middle and a dining table with water rings from too many coffee cups. Funny how those imperfections never bothered me. To me, that couch wasn't old, it was ours. I'd sit on the armrest, watching the flickering black and white TV, my father sighing after long shifts, my mother sewing quietly beside him. Even then, furniture had a kind of presence in my life. It wasn't just wood and fabric, it was where we gathered, where stories were told, where silence settled between us when words were too heavy. I didn't know it then, but those little things shaped the man I would become. At school, I wasn't the brightest nor the strongest, but I had curiosity. I loved to listen. I noticed details, how the teacher's chair had a groove worn in from years of leaning back, how the desks bore carvings of initials from restless hands, how the library smelled of dust and pages that had soaked up time. Sometimes I dreamed of being more, an engineer, maybe, or even a writer. But life has its own current. You think you're steering, but most of the time, you're just carried along. Looking back now, I realize my childhood was stitched together with small, ordinary moments that felt meaningless then, but precious now. Sitting with friends on the porch, watching fireflies, riding my bike down gravel roads until the sky turned orange, sneaking into the furniture shop once, pressing my nose to the glass to look at the glossy tables and cushioned chairs. I didn't know that one day those very pieces would become my livelihood, my daily bread, and in some strange way, my companions. I smile when I think of it. Childhood has a way of vanishing suddenly, and before you know it, you're standing in front of choices you never imagined.
For me, those choices began after high school. High school ended quicker than I thought it would. One day I was tossing my cap in the air. The next I was standing on the porch with my father, both of us quiet, staring out at the summer sky. He didn't say much, my father, just asked me if I had a plan. Truth was, I didn't. College wasn't really in the cards for me. Money was tight, and I wasn't the kind of boy who was going to win scholarships. So I took the path that was right in front of me. That little furniture shop on the corner, the one I used to press my nose against as a kid, was hiring. I remember walking in for the first time, nervous, the bell over the door chiming. The air smelled of wood polish and leather, mixed with something faintly sweet, maybe from the pine chests in the back. The owner, Mr. Callahan, was an older man with sharp eyes but a soft voice. He asked me if I knew anything about furniture. I told him no, but I knew how to work hard. That was enough. He gave me a job. At first I did the grunt work, sweeping floors, carrying boxes, polishing display tables until my arms ached. But even then, something stirred in me. I started noticing things. How people ran their fingers along the edges of a dining table like they were feeling its strength. How couples sat side by side on a sofa, leaning close, imagining their future together in it. How an old man would pull out a rocking chair and just sit, sighing like he'd found a piece of home. I began to understand. I wasn't just helping sell furniture. I was helping people choose the stage on which their lives would play out. Mr. Callahan must have seen the way I watched customers, the way I listened, because one afternoon he told me, "You've got the eyes for this, son. The ears, too. Selling isn't talking. It's knowing when to shut up and let folks dream." That stuck with me, more than anything I ever learned in school. Soon he let me shadow him on the floor. I remember the first time I tried to explain a sofa to a couple. My voice shook, my palms sweated, but I saw their eyes soften when I described how the cushions would hold them after a long day. They bought it. My first sale, my first step into a world I never expected would become mine. I went home that night, $20 richer and 1,000 pounds lighter, grinning like a fool. My mother hugged me, and my father just nodded, but I saw the pride in his eyes. That was the beginning. I didn't know it then, but furniture would become the rhythm of my life. The smell, the touch, the sound of footsteps on showroom floors, and with it came lessons about people, about dreams, and about myself. The more time I spent on that showroom floor, the more I realized this wasn't just a job. It was almost a craft. Not building the furniture, I never had the hands for carpentry, but building trust, building connection. Every day people came in with different stories written on their faces. A young couple expecting their first child, nervously choosing a crib. A widow who wanted a smaller kitchen table because the old one felt too empty now. A farmer who'd saved all year for a good recliner to ease his back. I learned that when people walked into a furniture store, they weren't really buying wood and fabric. They were buying comfort, belonging, even a little bit of hope. I became obsessed with details. I'd run my hand along the grain of oak, learning the language of wood. I'd kneel down to smell the faint sweetness of new pine. I'd memorize the colors of fabric swatches, not just by name, but by feel. Plush, rough, smooth, cool. I knew which sofa creaked if you sat too hard, which dresser drawer slid out smooth as butter, which rocking chair had a rhythm that could calm even the fussiest baby. And I started listening, really listening. Mr. Callahan used to say, "Son, folks will tell you what they want if you just keep your mouth shut long enough." He was right. A husband would say, "This one's sturdy," while his wife quietly traced her finger along the softer fabric on the next couch. I'd catch that, smile, and gently steer them toward it. Most times, they left happy. It wasn't about pushing the priciest piece. It was about finding the right one. And when you did that, people remembered. They came back. They asked for you by name. That was the secret. Not sales, but service. The job wasn't without its struggles. There were slow months, days when the showroom echoed empty, and you wondered if you'd chosen the wrong path. There were customers who haggled you down to the bone, leaving you frustrated. And sometimes, no matter how hard you tried, you couldn't give them what they wanted. Those nights, I went home with a knot in my chest, staring at the ceiling, asking myself if I was cut out for it.
But then, there were moments. A young couple, shaking my hand, beaming, telling me, "This is going to be the couch where we start our life." Or an old woman hugging me after her new armchair was delivered, whispering, "Thank you, son. I'll spend my last years in this." Moments like that, those were fuel. They reminded me that selling furniture wasn't small. It was part of people's lives. And in some strange way, part of mine, too. That's when I stopped thinking of myself as just a shop boy. I was a salesman, and I was proud of it. Those early years at the store were full of discovery, not just of furniture, but of myself. I was in my 20s then, hair thick and dark, a body full of restless energy. The store became more than a place of work. It was a stage where friendships and even love began to unfold. There was Tommy, another young salesman, loud, quick with a joke, the kind of man who could charm a customer before they even knew what he was selling. We balanced each other. He had the gift of talk. I had the gift of listening. Together, we learned the ropes, stayed late to rearrange displays, and sometimes sneaked out early to drink cold beer by the river, our ties loosened, shoes kicked off. He was like the brother I never had. And then there was her, Mary. She worked in the bookkeeping office at the back of the store. Blonde hair tucked into a neat bun, glasses sliding down her nose, always carrying a stack of ledgers as though they weighed more than her small frame could handle. I'd make excuses to walk past her desk, pretending to need an invoice or asking about a delivery receipt I already knew the answer to. One day, I caught her smiling at me from behind the numbers. That was enough to set my heart racing in a way no sales commission ever could. I still remember our first date, a Friday night movie downtown. I wore my best shirt. She wore a simple blue dress, and when the lights went down, my hand brushed hers and didn't move away. By the time the credits rolled, I knew my life was changing. Those were the golden years. Long days at the store, late nights out with friends, weekends spent driving through back roads with Mary beside me, her laughter spilling into the warm summer air. Everything felt possible. Every sale, every customer, every shared dream with her felt like bricks being laid in the foundation of a future I could almost touch. But life, I've learned, doesn't hand you joy without sprinkling in trials. The economy had its ups and downs, and some months were lean. Tommy and I argued over sales more than once, pride getting in the way of friendship. And Mary, she wanted more from me than just a steady job at the furniture shop. She wanted a man who could give her stability, a home, a family. I wanted those things too, but fear gnawed at me. Fear of not being enough. Fear of losing it all. Yet in the middle of all that uncertainty, the smell of fresh wood, the gleam of polished tables, the hum of laughter with Tommy, the warmth of Mary's hand in mine, they anchored me. I didn't know it then, but those years were shaping me into the man who would carry both love and loss, both triumph and regret, through the decades to come. It didn't take long before Mary and I knew we were meant to be. The store became part of our love story. I proposed to her right there, after hours, in the middle of the showroom floor. We were standing beside a maple dining table, the lights dim, the place smelling of lemon polish and fresh-cut wood. I slipped the ring onto her finger with trembling hands, and she said yes before I even finished asking. We married in a small church on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just family, a few close friends, and the sound of a piano playing softly. Tommy stood beside me as my best man, grinning like a fool, while Mary walked down the aisle in a dress her mother had sewn by hand. That moment, the way she looked at me, I can still feel it in my chest, even now, 70 years old, standing in this hotel hallway. Marriage brought joy, but also weight, bills to pay, dreams to build, children to raise. We rented a little house at first, filled it with mismatched furniture, pieces from the clearance section of the store, items I'd bargained down with Mr. Callahan, a couch where we sat close on winter nights, a creaky bed that carried the weight of our laughter and our fears. Slowly, piece by piece, we built a home.
When our first child was born, a boy, I held him in my arms, looking down at his tiny fists, and something in me shifted. Responsibility settled heavy on my shoulders. It wasn't just about making sales anymore. It was about providing, about making sure Mary and that little boy never went without. The job grew harder in those years. Long hours, demanding customers, quotas to meet. Sometimes I came home bone-tired, my shirt damp with sweat, my patience worn thin. Mary would greet me with a soft smile, a warm plate of dinner, and the baby in her arms. She was my anchor. But there were cracks, too. Nights when she wished I were home instead of staying late to close a sale. Days when I felt torn between ambition and family. We argued, we made up, we learned. That's marriage, the weaving together of two imperfect lives into something that somehow holds. And all the while, the store pulsed at the center of my days. Customers became stories. A young family buying bunk beds for their growing boys. An elderly couple choosing matching armchairs so they could sit side by side in their final years. Each sale wasn't just a number, it was a thread, weaving me deeper into the fabric of the community. I didn't realize it then, but those years were teaching me what endurance meant. Not just in work, but in love, in fatherhood, in carrying a weight that sometimes felt too heavy, yet never broke me. Looking back, I see now it was the foundation, the steady ground on which everything else in my life was built. Middle age came quietly, almost unnoticed at first. One day, I was still the young man running through the showroom, helping customers, laughing with Tommy and Mary. The next, I noticed gray streaking my hair, a stiffness in my shoulders, and the slow ache of years piling onto my body. The store changed too. Mr. Callahan retired, leaving me more responsibility than I had ever asked for. I was managing inventory, supervising new hires, balancing budgets, and handling complaints from customers who were never satisfied. Some days, I felt like I was barely keeping my head above water. And then came the betrayals. Not the dramatic kind, but the kind that gnaw at your heart slowly. A trusted coworker tried to take credit for my sales. A friend of mine, someone I had confided in, revealed private frustrations to others. And Mary, she wasn't betraying me, not exactly, but the stress of life had made her distant, her laughter more strained, her eyes carrying worries she no longer shared with me. I remember one evening, standing in the showroom after hours, the lights dimmed, the air heavy with the scent of varnish and polished wood. I ran my hand over a display chair, feeling its smooth grain beneath my fingers. Tommy had left months ago for a better-paying job. Mary was asleep upstairs. I felt utterly alone, though surrounded by furniture I had come to love as much as family. Losses came too. My father passed quietly, in his sleep, leaving a hollow where guidance and presence once lived. Friends moved away or fell ill. Customers I had grown close to, people who had trusted me with pieces of their lives, stopped coming. Change was everywhere, and I realized that life, like the grain in a slab of oak, carries knots, imperfections, things you cannot smooth out no matter how hard you try. But through it all, the store remained a constant. Selling furniture became more than a job. It was my tether. Every sofa delivered, every satisfied customer reminded me that I was still capable of connection. I learned resilience. I learned patience. I learned that sometimes people and life itself will disappoint, but it is up to you how you let it shape you. And slowly, in the midst of heartbreak, I found gratitude. Gratitude for Mary, for Tommy, for the lessons hidden in betrayal, for the comfort of furniture that held stories. Even in middle age, even when life seemed to shift beneath me, I began to see that the foundation of my life, my family, my work, my integrity, was still strong. By the time I reached my late 40s, I was no longer just a salesman. I was a craftsman of sorts, though not in the sense of shaping wood or stitching leather, but in shaping experiences. I had learned the subtleties of my trade, how to read a customer's hesitation, how to suggest a piece without pushing, how to turn a hesitant maybe into a smile of satisfaction. There's a rhythm to this work that outsiders rarely understand. Each day begins with opening the store, arranging displays so the light hits just right, dusting off fingerprints and straightening every cushion. Customers arrive, some with excitement, some with skepticism. And as I guide them, I am part narrator, part listener, part dream weaver. By the end of the day, A living room or a dining set has found its new life. And I feel it too, as though the pieces carry a little bit of me into another home.
Recognition came quietly, without fanfare. A longtime customer who insisted on requesting me by name. Mr. Callahan, now retired, stopping by to compliment my approach. The satisfaction of a difficult delivery going perfectly. Even Tommy, visiting from his own new venture, once said, "You've got a gift, man. You make people feel at home before they even sit down." The pride wasn't in the money. It was in knowing I had earned trust. In seeing families happy with their choices. In hearing children squeal on a new bunk bed I had recommended. In seeing an elderly couple settle into matching armchairs, finally comfortable. Every day, these small victories reminded me why I stayed. There were still challenges, of course. Shipping errors, difficult personalities, occasional financial strain. But I had learned to navigate them, to bend without breaking, to listen even when I disagreed. And slowly, over decades, I became the man others sought out, not for flashy sales or big promotions, but for steadiness, honesty, and the quiet confidence that comes from doing a job well, every day. By the time I turned 55, I had earned the respect of my community. A lifetime of dedication etched into every handshake, every smile, and every carefully polished piece of furniture. And with that recognition came a sense of peace, a feeling that, no matter what storms might come, I had built something meaningful, and it would outlast me. As I moved into my late 50s, the store became more than a place to sell furniture. It became a classroom. Young hires arrived, eager-eyed and nervous, and I found myself guiding them through the nuances I had learned over decades. How to listen, how to notice a hesitation in a customer's step, how to describe the softness of a cushion or the strength of a table without sounding like a salesman at all. I remember one young man, Peter, barely out of high school, clumsy, shy, unsure of himself. On his first day, he spilled a stack of brochures across the showroom floor, and I thought, well, this is going to be interesting. But instead of scolding him, I knelt down, helped him gather the papers, and said, "Everyone starts somewhere. Watch and learn." Over the months, Peter grew, slowly at first, awkward smiles turning into confident gestures, hesitations into knowledge. And each time he made a sale on his own, I felt it too, like a small echo of my younger self. Mentoring him, watching him find his stride, reminded me why I had stayed in this line of work for so long. It wasn't just Peter. There were others. Mary's niece, a college student needing summer work, and even seasoned salespeople who wanted to learn a few tricks. I shared everything. The importance of patience, the subtle power of observation, the art of reading a room. Some lessons were practical, others were about integrity. Always about integrity. Through mentoring, I realized how much the store had shaped me. All those years of small victories, betrayals, late nights, and proud moments had accumulated into a kind of wisdom, not the kind found in books, but the kind that comes from living fully in one place, paying attention and caring. It also brought unexpected joy. Seeing someone grow because of your guidance is a rare kind of happiness, and I began to understand that this: teaching, shaping others, leaving a legacy in people as well as in furniture, was just as meaningful as the work itself. By the time I turned 65, retirement had started to feel less like a distant dream and more like a gentle shadow at the edge of my days. I still came to the store each morning, but now with a slower step and a quieter mind. My hands, once steady and tireless, sometimes trembled when I lifted a heavy cushion or adjusted a display. The knees ached more. The mornings were colder. And yet, I cherished each day more than ever. I began thinking about what it would mean to leave. The customers, the routines, the quiet victories. How could I step away without leaving a void? And then I realized life had been preparing me for this moment all along. Every decision, every lesson, every friendship and heartbreak had been a thread in a tapestry I could now admire. Mary noticed it first. She'd watch me in the showroom polishing a chair or straightening a rug, and smile knowingly. "You're ready," she said one evening, as the sun painted the hardwood floors gold. "You've given everything, and now it's time to take care of yourself." The farewell from my colleagues was quietly moving. I was given a small plaque, engraved with my name and the years I had devoted to the store. Customers came by to shake my hand, some with tears in their eyes, thanking me for years of guidance and care. Some of the younger salespeople I had mentored surprised me with a small gathering, laughter, stories, even a cake shaped like a miniature sofa.
I stood there, feeling the weight of decades lift, replaced by a deep, grounding sense of gratitude for the work, for the people, for the life I had been lucky enough to live. It wasn't the kind of moment filled with fireworks or grand declarations. It was quieter, softer, like the closing notes of a long-loved song. And I understood then that life, like furniture, needed time, care, and attention to become something enduring. Walking home that evening, the city lights twinkling, I breathed deeply. I had done my best. I had loved. I had worked. I had built, shaped, and guided. And now I could finally rest, knowing I had lived fully. Now, standing in this hotel hallway, the scent of new leather wrapping around me, I feel the years folding over themselves like pages in an old book. That sofa, the one that caught my eye the moment I wandered away from the family, was more than furniture. It was a doorway. I remember the first time I saw a couch in a showroom as a boy, the way I pressed my nose to the glass, dreaming of the lives it would hold. I remember the thrill of my first sale, the quiet pride in Mr. Callahan's eyes. I remember the first night Mary and I sat on our modest couch, our baby asleep in the next room, whispering about the future. And now, at 70, I touch this hotel sofa, feeling the cool, smooth leather beneath my fingers, and it brings it all back. The smell of polish, the creak of springs, the laughter of customers, the warmth of Mary's hand, Tommy's jokes echoing through the showroom. Every detail of my life as a furniture salesman rushes back. Hours spent polishing, arranging, explaining, listening, dreaming, and guiding. The hotel lobby is quiet tonight. My family is somewhere upstairs, unaware of the memories flooding me. I sit down carefully on that sofa, feeling the plush cushions mold to my frame, and for a moment
I am not 70. I am all the years of my life at once. The eager boy, the young man in love, the salesman proud of his work, the mentor, the husband, the father, the man who has seen losses and triumphs. A soft smile spreads across my face. Life was messy. Life was hard. Life was full of unexpected twists, heartbreaks, and betrayals. But it was mine. And even here, far from the showroom in the hustle of daily work, I feel it. Pride, peace, and a deep, warm satisfaction. Sitting here, I realize that my life as a furniture salesman taught me more than I could have imagined. Not just about tables, chairs, or couches, but about people, about patience, empathy, and the subtle art of noticing what others need before they even realize it themselves. I think of the customers who trusted me with their homes, the young salespeople I mentored, the friends I made and lost along the way. Each encounter left a mark, like a polished surface catching light differently depending on the angle. Some moments brought laughter, some tears, some a quiet sense of awe at the ordinariness and extraordinariness of life itself. I learned that joy isn't always loud. Sometimes it's in the small things. A couple finally finding the perfect sofa. A child climbing into a bunk bed I recommended. Mary leaning against my shoulder after a long day. Sometimes it's in the moments of quiet reflection, when the world slows and you can feel the pulse of a life well lived. And gratitude, so much gratitude, from my work, which gave me purpose, from my family, who gave me love, for the community that trusted me, for the laughter, the mistakes, the struggles, and the triumphs. Life gave me the whole spectrum, and I accepted it all. Sitting on this hotel sofa, I feel the gentle tug of nostalgia, not as sadness, but as warmth. Memories no longer sting. They soothe. They remind me that life, like furniture, is built piece by piece with care, patience, and heart. I hear their laughter from upstairs, my children, grown now, chasing each other through the hotel halls, their voices echoing softly, blending with the distant hum of the air conditioning. My grandchildren squeal as they tumble over suitcases and pillows, full of energy I haven't felt in decades. Mary is there too, her gentle voice guiding them, a soft laugh escaping her lips. I lean back into the sofa, feeling the smooth leather beneath my hands, and a warmth spreads through me. This was what it was all for. Family. The long hours at the store, the sacrifices, the early mornings, the late nights, every polished table, every carefully described chair, every small act of service led to this moment, being surrounded by the people I love most. I watch as a young boy, my grandson, climbs onto the sofa beside me, eyes wide with curiosity. He touches the cushions, feeling the smooth leather, and I smile thinking of how many children over the years have done the same, trusting me to guide their families to comfort. He asks me about the sofa, and I tell him a small story about how furniture carries stories within it. His eyes light up, and for a moment I see the same wonder I felt as a boy. Time stretches and folds around me. The present, the past, and the memories of a lifetime blend into one soft golden light. It's a gift I hadn't expected, to be fully here, fully alive, surrounded by love, yet still carrying the echoes of every year that led me here. I close my eyes and breathe, letting the sounds, smells, and touches sink in. The laughter, the leather, the polished wood,
They are all threads in the tapestry of my life, woven with care and intention.
I think about the countless days spent on the showroom floor, the lives I touched without realizing it. Each family, each individual, each customer carried a story that intersected with mine, if only for a fleeting moment. I sold more than furniture. I offered a small piece of comfort, a place to rest, a setting for life's milestones. I remember Mr. Callahan telling me, "A good salesman doesn't sell. He helps people see the life they want." At the time, I nodded politely, not fully understanding. Now, I see the truth in his words. Every sofa delivered, every chair polished, every dining table explained. It was part of something bigger. I shaped not just homes, but experiences, memories, and moments. Families gathered, children laughed, grandparents rested, and I was there, silently guiding, quietly contributing to lives that would carry on long after I was gone. There were mistakes, of course, missed deliveries, misjudged colors, moments of impatience, but even those became lessons woven into the fabric of my life. They taught me humility, resilience, and the value of persistence. Looking back, I realized that the work I thought was ordinary was extraordinary in its impact. And I feel pride, not arrogance, but a deep, calm satisfaction that comes from knowing that for decades I dedicated myself fully to a craft, to people, to a life worth living. I sit here on this hotel sofa, 70 years of life pressing softly against my mind, and I feel whole. The decades of work, the joys, the losses, the friendships, the love, they have all led me to this quiet moment of reflection, and it is enough. I sit on this hotel sofa, letting the leather cradle me, and I feel the full weight of my 70 years, not a heavy burden, but a richness built from every laugh, every tear, every creak of a chair, every handshake, every smile. Life has given me so much more than I expected, and I am grateful. I think of Mary, who has walked beside me through storms and sunshine, whose love steadied me when I faltered. I think of my children and grandchildren, whose energy and laughter remind me of the cycles of life and the promise of continuity. I think of the countless customers who trusted me, the young people I mentored, the friends I held dear. Each one left a mark, and each one shaped me in return. I remember my first day at the furniture store, nervous and unsure, and I marvel at how far I've come. The boy who once pressed his face to the showroom glass has lived a lifetime, seen love and betrayal, built a family, guided others, endured loss, and still found joy. I see the patterns now, like the grain of wood beneath my fingers, knots and lines, imperfections and beauty, all forming a coherent whole. The hotel is quiet now. My family sleeps, the soft hum of the building like a lullaby. I close my eyes, resting on the sofa, and feel a profound peace. I have lived fully, loved deeply, worked hard, and left a legacy in both people and objects that will outlast me. And in this moment, I realize something simple and essential. Life was never about perfection or control. It was about presence, about noticing the small things, caring deeply, and carrying forward with honesty and heart. And I did. I smiled softly, knowing I would live it all again the same way. Every triumph, every failure, every quiet moment between them. Life, messy, beautiful, fleeting, was mine, and I am grateful.